The 4400 reboot will premiere tonight on the CW, and I couldn't be more excited for it. The original USA Network 4400 was my favorite show growing up, and in this video I will describe the qualities that made the first 4400 a trailblazer for its time and why the premise is ripe for a reboot 14 years later. Spoilers ahead for the first season of the original 4400, and no spoilers for the reboot. The original 4400 premiered to critical acclaim in 2004 and received an Emmy nomination for its first season as a standalone miniseries. It was picked up as a full series and completed 3 more seasons before abruptly being cancelled in 2007 due to the writer's strike, though some have argued it happened due to a declining viewership and a declining quality to many fans. But a small, dedicated fan base remained who knew the series finale cliffhanger provided an enormous opportunity to re-envision the show and revitalize those qualities that made the show a hit and endeared it to fans in the first place. Several small-scale renewal campaigns sprung up from its cancellation, with no success. So, why a renewal? Why now? Why the CW? Showrunner Scott Peters first conceived of the 4400 to create a science fiction piece that showcased the world's reaction to a global event. This broad series premise follows a trend from the early and mid-2000s in sci-fi media as a reaction to 9/11. High-concept fantastical events were jumping-off points for telling stories that reflected on society as a whole by showing the responses to a global event from the perspective of a large cast of characters. The show also had an ensemble cast with individual personalized stories for each episode, while maintaining a serialized sci-fi-based arc similar to other shows being picked up at the same time. While its popularity never hit quite the same way as its network competitors, the show received enough praise and favor to be indirectly responsible for creating such shows like Heroes on NBC. It is clear to many fans that this show still had sticking power as many more shows with remarkably similar premises started to appear. Of course, the most popular series is Heroes, but the subgenre of ordinary people becoming superheroes would dominate movie theaters for the next 2 decades. It was the other half of the premise of the 4400 that truly influenced the sci-fi landscape. 4,400 individuals have disappeared over the course of 50 years, having not aged a day and with no memory of where they've been, and they must connect with a life interrupted. Now, time dilation is a common trope in sci-fi literature. It plays with concepts of general relativity to create a fish out of temporal water character. Often the character or characters are abducted by aliens. The 4400 took this concept one step further by playing off of those expectations and making the show grounded. Since the show took place in the present day, and the cinematography and the style of the first season were riffing off of the X-Files aesthetic, it was assumed that this show was going to be about alien abduction. However, Season 1 revealed the returnees were displaced in time due to people from the future. This placed a grounded, real-world perspective on the story. These were human stories whose purpose was to continue to help other people. These first 2 seasons were not about some advanced tech or greater power. It was just stories about people doing their best with a life interrupted. This spawned such shows as Manifest on NBC, which dealt with the disappearance and reappearance of a commercial airliner. The Foreigners is a 2019 Norwegian cop procedural that deals with the returnees that appear on a repeating basis from the Stone Age Viking era in 1800s. This trope was also played with people who have been confirmed dead and focused more on themes of mortality, including Glitch, the 2014 Australian drama series, the 2004 French film They Came Back, and the adapted French and American TV series The Returned. And just last June, Netflix released an Icelandic show called Katla, where people woke up and preserved volcanic ash. Like with Groundhog Day, what was once a unique premise has become its own subgenre. It is clear that since 2004, this premise of people displaced in time has had sticking power that will always find an audience. Okay, so this still doesn't explain why the CW picked up the rights to the 4400 when they could have just as easily created an original show. There are 2 answers to this, and the internet speculation is more than eager to jump at the easiest, most obvious answer. It matches up with the network's current lineup of superhero shows. Clearly, these DC properties have bolstered the network's success and will likely be there to stay. So, if they want to cater to the current audience with a new show that isn't a DC property, then why not bring something in that is superhero adjacent? I suspect if you were to ask most fans of the original 4400 if it was a superhero show, most would say no, it is more of a human drama with supernatural elements. However, the most critical fans would argue that they relied a bit too heavily on the sci-fi plot devices in later seasons. But more importantly, what makes the 4400 different is that the 4400 brought intimate personal drama that focused on classism. It took issues of environmental degradation, racism, ageism, and marginalization seriously. In short, this show was about social justice, and this was all covered with the backdrop of a sci-fi plot about superpowered humans. The 4400, starting with the pilot, were a marginalized group of people. The changes to the plot feel appropriate for the time as well. The 4400 show, originally set in Seattle, has been changed to Detroit in 2021. This shows intention on the writer's part that this will face issues we see in Detroit today: segregation, income inequality, and environmental justice issues. Additionally, the casting depicts a makeup appropriate for a show set in Detroit. It shows intentionality, it shows inclusion, and most importantly, it has the potential to show belonging. The tragic history of Detroit, the devastation it sees today, and the efforts people make to revitalize the communities are a beacon for the necessity of change. What a location to literally drop the people who are supposed to save the world. Unfortunately, the original show's premise held so much promise, and it was not given the time to adequately fulfill it. I'm so excited to see what a fresh interpretation of this plot can provide. I will be glued to my TV every Monday with the anticipation that it can deliver on the thoughtfulness and care of my favorite TV show growing up.